I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to lesson 41. We are in our Houseplants unit. And as a matter of fact, Cheryl, I think this will be the last lesson in our houseplant unit.
Oh, that's kind of a bummer. I've really been enjoying this one. It's been pretty personal.
It has been.
You
It's
know?
been all about your houseplants.
Yeah. Well, I better make my question a good one then.
Yeah,
if we're
you
gonna-
better.
So I've been thinking about houseplants I used to have, back when I killed a lot of my houseplants constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one I had that did not survive, but I had it for a little while.
Okay.
And it was a Venus flytrap.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah. It did catch a couple flies. And also it was a gift from one of my seasonal staff when I worked at a camp. So it was like a college age girl that just was like, "Hey, you want a Venus flytrap?" And I was like, "Sure." And then she was at one point she had said she fed it a scrambled egg. So that was pretty funny. We tried to feed
Okay.
it like a dead fly or a bee or something. But it was funny because I lived in the woods. So you would have think that you would have thought it would have thrived in the woods. But eventually it did die, probably because I overwatered it or, one of
Did you
the other things we've
plant it
talked about it.
outside?
No,
Oh,
it was
okay.
in my house.
Okay.
But anyway, I had this Venus flytrap for several months and I still have no idea why they're a thing. Like,
Why they're a thing?
yeah,
Like, what do you
carnivorous
mean?
plants.
Oh, the carnivorous part.
Yeah.
Why
What?
they eat
That
things?
is wild. That's not just something from like DuckTales or something. That this is a real thing in our world that plants can be carnivorous.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. So I don't know what my question is. Like, how can plants eat meat? I guess.
Okay.
How is that a thing? This goes against everything we've talked about as far as what plants do. And we need to get to the bottom of this.
Okay. Well, let's dig into that a little bit more in our pre-assessment.
Okay.
I want to, there's a whole bunch of why questions that are in my brain, and you may or may not know the answers to them yet, but why do you think it's weird for plants to be carnivorous? What about that is weird?
Because their food is sunlight. Their
Okay.
food is a thing we can't even touch. And they do something entirely different than what animal bodies do by turning sunlight into food. And then guess what? Surprise, a handful of plants do exactly what animals do. And they actually eat physical, tangible animals.
Okay, take a step back. You said two different things. You said their food is sunlight, but then you also said they turn sunlight into food.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. They turn sunlight into food through photosynthesis.
Okay. So is sunlight their food?
Yeah. Well, sunlight is what creates their food.
Sunlight creates their food. Okay.
They make food out of light.
Okay.
And then except for Venus flytraps, which make food out of flies. So then are they also making food out of sunlight? Can you starve a Venus flytrap if it doesn't eat any flies? And it is actually eating a fly, or is it just decomposing the fly? It is actually getting nutrients out of that fly.
What do you mean getting nutrients out of that fly?
Is it actually using it how animals use food for food? Or how anything uses food? Or is it just using sunlight and then this weird sideshow trick it can do is catching flies and slowly making them go away?
Okay. So again, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper here.
Okay.
You wondered whether the Venus flytrap is using food the way animals use food. How do animals use food?
Well, they eat physical things, not
Okay.
like rainbows and
Uh-huh.
sunlight.
Okay. So now plants eat rainbows. Okay, great.
Kind of. If you listen to our light lesson about rainbows, actually, you could argue that plants eat rainbows.
Okay. All right.
The animals eat physical things,
Okay.
not like they can't use light to make food.
Right. They can't use light to make food.
Yeah.
They use physical things instead of light things.
Yes.
Okay. But how do they use it? Like, what do animals do with food?
It goes in their stomach, and then their stomach acid breaks it down, and then it sends it through their body as nutrients and then
Okay.
gets rid of the waste that it doesn't use.
Okay.
We
So
might need to talk about digestion in another episode.
yeah, I may need to write that down. So nutrients. I think we talked about nutrients, at least for plants, earlier in an
Yeah, we
earlier
talked about them
episode.
coming from soil, I guess.
Do you remember what any of the nutrients were?
Iron was not one of the main ones, but we did talk about it. Phosphorus,
Uh-huh.
nitrogen, and a third one
Yes.
that I'm going to kick myself when
It's okay.
hear.
Potassium.
Potassium. Okay. Yeah. That's right. Because I made a joke about bananas. Cool. Yep.
Okay. So you're saying that plants get those from
soil
and animals get them from
their food.
Okay.
But then plants also get things from sunlight.
What are they getting the same things from sunlight?
No.
What are they getting from sunlight?
Energy?
Okay. She says with a question mark.
Shoot. Now I don't remember exactly what sunlight gives them. It's important. It's very important.
It is. Okay. That's okay. You got a lot of important pieces here, Cheryl.
Okay.
We've got a lot to talk about, Cheryl.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we got a lot. It's good. And you're actually closer to the answer than I think you realize.
Okay.
You're like, I don't believe that.
No, I don't, but that's okay.
It's okay. We'll get you the rest of the way there. But I really think what we need to start with is a little bit broader, which is, what do plants actually do with sunlight?
Okay, fine.
You're right that it's photosynthesis. And we've talked around this without directly talking about it, I think, in this unit. So I think it's helpful to kind of make the overall connection, because then that will help the other pieces, I think, make a little bit more sense for what a Venus flytrap does. Most plants do photosynthesis. I think you probably know that.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this, but remind me if we haven't. There's a pigment, a molecule with color, that absorbs the light.
Yeah, because we talked about it when we talked about leaves turning yellow.
Yes.
Chlorophyll?
Yep, chlorophyll. Okay. And what color is chlorophyll?
Green.
Green. That means if a plant is green, most likely that green portion can do photosynthesis.
So a Japanese maple maybe doesn't do it?
So that's another layer. And you're saying a Japanese maple because it has kind of those really dark kind of burgundy leaves instead of green?
It looks like a tree in the fall. but all the
But it
time.
does it all the time.
Yeah.
Remember how we talked about there are multiple pigments in the leaves?
Yeah.
And in the fall, what's happening is the chlorophyll's breaking down, and that's why you can see the other colors, because
Mhm.
usually they're dominated by the chlorophyll. There are some other plants that use different pigments to photosynthesize with other than chlorophyll.
Cool.
But if the plant is green, it's probably photosynthesizing.
Okay.
Let's take that to the Venus flytrap. Are any
Okay.
parts of a Venus flytrap green?
Yeah.
What does that most likely tell you about the Venus flytrap?
That they are photosynthesizing.
Yes, the Venus flytraps can do photosynthesis. What that means is they're not using the eating of the flies.
Thank you for doing the hand motion with their little weird teeth and their weird jaws.
Yep. And you know the way those work, right? Have you ever seen that in like a documentary?
I mean, I saw it in my house when
But
they
so
were
they have
doing it.
little, they look like hairs. They have
Yeah.
little like sticking up. And if they get moved, that's what triggers it to close.
Yeah.
But you have to do 2 of them. So if you just do
I didn't know
one, it
this
won't
part.
close. Yeah, so you have 2 of them, if they both get triggered within some amount of time that's relatively short, that's what gets it to close.
That is some Mission Impossible action going on there.
Isn't that
Oh my
cool?
goodness. That's really
Isn't that
cool.
But what that means is that the Venus flytrap isn't taking the food from the insects that it's eating. That is not replacing what it does for photosynthesis.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So it means, okay, so that gives us a clue as to what's going on because they're still photosynthesizing. So it's got to be related to something a little bit different than that.
Okay.
Additionally, you talked about food and sunlight. And I kind of harped on that a little bit.
Yes.
Because you were saying things that really mean more than one thing and not the same more than one thing.
Okay.
So let me clarify.
Because in science, we want to be exact
and precise and accurate. Yes, we do.
Okay, cool.
Yes,
Checks
we
out.
do.
Yeah.
Okay. Photosynthesis is the process of taking, and we have talked about these parts before, but using the energy of sunlight to break apart carbon dioxide and water, move those atoms around, and make glucose, which is a sugar.
So that's the energy part of it.
Partly.
Okay.
The energy from the sun is used to do the breaking apart and the moving around of those molecules, those atoms, to make sugar.
Yeah.
And sugar is what the quote unquote food is that a plant is making via photosynthesis.
Wow. So they're just like obsessed with carbs.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Okay.
But the sunlight isn't turning into food. The sunlight is used as energy to rearrange the carbon dioxide and the water to make the food, to make a molecule that then stores some of that energy. But that's what we think of as food.
So the sunlight is like the kitchen.
Sunlight is like the stove in the kitchen because it has energy. There's energy there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got energy and you've got matter, and both of them are related, but they're not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we talk about E equals MC squared, but that would be a totally different unit. Okay? Still making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we've got that, you talked about something with plants and nutrients. And you said plants get their nutrients from?
Soil.
From the soil.
Yeah.
We know that carnivorous plants like Venus flytraps can do photosynthesis. So they're not necessarily just getting food and energy from eating the flies. So what they're getting instead are nutrients.
Okay.
And the reason is because carnivorous plants usually live in areas where the soils are very nutrient poor. And they can't get enough nutrients from the soil that they're living in.
So did they evolve to start eating flies?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Uh-huh, I am. And one of the articles that I'll link in the description is based on a study where they figured out what actually had to happen in plant evolution to lead to that ability. And it was sort of a 3-step process that they had to go through to get there. But yeah, it's fascinating. Now, the plants didn't sit down and say, this soil is really nutrient poor. What can we do to have better nutrients? Like, that's not the way plants work, and that's not the way evolution works.
Yeah.
But yes, they evolved, and those adaptations allowed them to survive in areas where other plants can't, because they don't have the ability to get those nutrients. So that's what they're doing. They're breaking down those flies and other insects that they eat to get the things like nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium and even some iron and things like that that aren't readily available in the soil in the areas that they naturally live.
That is wild.
Isn't that cool?
That is very cool.
Did you also know that there are hundreds of types of carnivorous plants?
No.
Yeah, there's all sorts of them. One of the other things I'll link to is a webpage that just catalogs lots of different ones and has really cool pictures that just has all sorts of stuff, because there's Venus flytraps. There are pitcher plants. Have you heard of pitcher plants before? Those ones are fun. There are like dewdrops, where they have like little, looks like they have little tendrils. They have little drops of what look like dew on the end, but they're sticky. And so then insects like get stuck in it, and then like pulls together towards the center and like envelops it. There's tons. They're very cool.
That's
Carnivorous
really
plants are very cool.
I need to get a Venus flytrap again.
You can get a Venus flytrap again. You can
I
even
should do that.
you can buy little carnivorous plant kits that have multiple types.
Oh, yay.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
And what that also means is one of the questions you asked was, well, could you starve a Venus flytrap by not letting it eat flies or anything?
Yes.
And now what do you think?
Yes.
Why?
It'd be the same as not letting a plant have soil. Or like those are some of the nutrients that it needs to grow, but also even to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually, yeah, I would starve without those things. Maybe there weren't enough flies in my house, which again is very weird. I lived in the woods, but there really weren't a lot of flies in my house.
I don't really associate flies with the woods so much.
Yeah, just animals in general are out there.
Yeah, it's true. But ideally, they're not in your house where you live.
Yeah, they weren't, which is great.
That's a good thing, yeah.
My Venus flytrap probably starved because I didn't give it enough flies. So do you think it actually used the scrambled egg to get nutrients?
I'm trying to think.
Or did it just make do with it?
Egg is a lot of protein. And the yolk is, I think, a lot of fat, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The fat, I don't think it would have absorbed. But the protein, if it had enzymes that could break down the protein in the egg, it could get nitrogen from that, because proteins have nitrogen in them. So maybe it could be cute. I don't know. I'm not an expert, so I could be wrong, but I could see it as a possibility.
Wow, that's so fun.
Yeah. So there you go. Do you feel like you understand the question you didn't even know what you were asking yet?
Yes, that is really cool. I was not expecting evolution, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And now, Cheryl, it's time for your last quiz of this unit.
Okay, I do think they've been helpful because they've helped me be a better plant owner, so I will allow it.
Oh, I'm so glad you're allowing it.
Yes.
First question. How do we know Venus flytraps do photosynthesis?
Because they're green.
Yay. And that means that they have
chlorophyll.
Nice. What does the light used in photosynthesis actually do?
It gives plants the ability to turn things into glucose?
Yes. Do you remember what those things are?
Cells.
No.
Oh, dang it. It doesn't turn the light into glucose. It gives
Nope.
the plant the ability to turn
Right?
something that it already has.
Things that plants take in.
Nutrients, water,
Water
carbon
and
dioxide.
carbon dioxide. Water and carbon dioxide.
Okay.
I'm just going to start saying things. Some of them will be right.
Yep.
Okay. Why do Venus flytraps need to eat flies?
Because they're starving. They are not getting the nutrients that they need from their soil.
And so
They get it from animals.
they get it from the flies. Yep,
Mhm.
exactly right. Okay, last question. You ready?
Yeah.
You said that if we didn't let a Venus flytrap eat flies, it could starve.
Yeah.
What could you change about a Venus flytrap's environment that would prevent them from starving, even if they didn't have access to flies?
I could give them better soil.
Tell me more about that.
Well, because then I would just like reverse evolve their lives. And so
What?
then maybe they could get the nutrients from the soil that they were missing in the first place that caused them to evolve.
There you go. Yes. I don't know that I would call that reverse revolving, but yes, you could definitely, if you put them in soil that was nutrient rich instead of nutrient poor, then they would survive just fine without eating all of the flies.
Interesting.
Now, Cheryl,
Yes.
this is the end of our unit, which means we are also going to do a unit reflection.
Oh, yay. I like these.
Yeah, these are good.
Yeah.
First reflection question. What were some things from our unit on houseplants, on your houseplants,
Yes.
that you found interesting?
Oh, gosh. I think what was interesting was that these are things that I've really wondered about actively
Mm,
because they're in my home and things
hmm
I've tried to get better at and kind of been like somewhat aimlessly, not totally aimlessly working at, just being like, I'm going to try this. Or like my sister said this will work, but not knowing like, well, why would that work? Or
mm,
why is that a
hmm
thing? And so understanding like something I've actually been working towards
hmm
and trying to improve upon is really cool because now I'm like, oh, that's why I shouldn't overwater my plants, not just because of whatever is like, oh no, I'm actually drowning them, or just things like that
hmm
is like interesting to
hmm
know like what's actually happening in my home with these plants.
Yeah, that's great. What were some of the things that you found challenging in this unit?
Oh boy. I think remembering the little bits and pieces of like what are the names of the names of
Mm,
things. It's the names of things. That's what
hmm
was hard. In the other units, it's been the unseen things or the
Uh-huh.
microscopic things. And in this
Yeah.
one, it's remembering like what are those nutrients again? Or like what does
hmm
photosynthesis do? There's a lot of components and it's pretty
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And that's true of biology in general. There tends to be a lot more names of things.
Mm.
And because living things are complex, there's all sorts of different pieces that are all interconnected with each other. And that's what often makes biology more challenging.
Wow. No
So,
wonder it
see,
was hard for me in school. So that makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And finally, what concepts do you think you might remember or might stick with you?
All of them? I mean, like I I I think definitely like the thing about them being root bound
Mm,
and the leaves they're I think it's because it's like actually a thing in my life that I'm gonna remember
yeah.
a lot of them of like turning yellow, root bound, um, overwatering, leaves growing bigger when it goes vertical. Like all of those things are
Mhm.
like I still remember them now at least. And like I think I'll continue to remember them because I'm gonna keep having houseplants. And so I think I'm like using what I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get to keep practicing it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Would you say this was a worthwhile unit?
Yeah. We need to go through all the areas of my life to see what will help me.
Perfect. That sounds like such a great plan. But I think we're going to have to wrap up this unit. So why don't you go ahead and pack up and get ready for my closing remarks. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
Ah! The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.